apparently they saw someone with a blowtorch going around. Happens to be an illegal immigrant. Can't help it but think, like, how all these things just align perfectly.
Yep.
Obviously, you had all the issues with how forest fires are mismanaged, right? And so everyone's highlighting how there wasn't water in the reservoir because of the environmentalist, everything to the insurance companies kind of seeing, okay, this is too much risk and pulling out. And then the new presidential inauguration happening. And then what do you think happened?
I have a strong feeling that at least some of the fires were caused by arson, because it doesn't look, I can't imagine 4 or 5 fires happening simultaneously as being natural. I mean, LA is big. You know how LA, it can take you 2 to 3 hours to drive across LA. It's a huge county.
Right. And this is when, I missed the 2010s to 2012s when you guys were swooping up on thousands of properties.
Some people, I mean, I'll tell you, a lot of people got burned in 08. Right?
Yeah.
I had friends in the industry that lost everything because they were highly leveraged. They would, when you are buying homes, you get, especially in subprime, they're basically giving you 100% of the loan amount, 110%.
125%.
Exactly. So
right.
these banks are like, hey, just take my money, right? Do you have it? Can you breathe air? Do you have 2 legs? Okay, here's a couple $100 million or something like that. They just give you whatever money they can, because that's how they make money. Is they loan you money, they sell it in the secondary market, and they make a piece of the action.
Right.
And there was no controls over that, and that's why when the thing started falling apart, trillions of dollars suddenly disappeared. Which is crazy. I remember that. And if you're not prepared, then you lose your shirt. Right. And so, yes, a lot of people made money. I waited it out a little bit. Sometimes I kick myself in the butt because I did not go in 06. I did not go in 07. I get in 08. I got in 09, and I got in 010. And so I wait. I was like a patient person waiting. But on the other end of the spectrum, you could have made money from 05 to 08. Right?
Oh, man.
So many different ways to make money again.
I was just starting off in my career, and I could have bought a home. I could have bought many homes.
Yep.
But I didn't, because I subscribed to the adage that you should make 3 times more than your mortgage payment. Right. And so people all that stuff went out the door because equity kept going up. It didn't matter what your mortgage payment was, because everyone was like, shit, doesn't matter what the mortgage interest rate, payments, whatever, your property is going to double in value in just a few years.
Refinance it.
Refinance it.
Yeah. In about,
Right. And I try to be responsible. Right. And then the crash happened. And what really pissed me off is all these guys in the mortgage industry with me that was irresponsible was now subsidized by the government, because they weren't letting a lot of mortgages fall through.
Yeah. Well, they made a couple of banks collapse, but after they saw the kind of a snowball effect that it started affecting the financial institution, they had to basically bail out a lot of the different banks. Like, Citibank didn't fail, but even though they almost did, right? They had to back Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
And at that time, they changed all the rules so that liquidity was important when it comes to banking. And that's why people like myself made the money, because the banks had to unload all of these loans that was affecting their liquidity.
Right.
So they were selling it they were selling it really cheap at that time, because if they're not liquid, they can't function as a bank anymore.
Right.
So they literally sold hundreds of thousands of properties at 10 cents on the dollar.
And this is when you got in.
This is when I got in, because I've always been distressed property buyer, right? I started, way back when, 1994. So
there was other cycles of distress properties.
Well, back then there was different opportunities. This was before corporations actually got themselves into buying in the foreclosure market. This is before BlackRock. This is before Blackstone and Colony. Before corporations were buying distressed assets. Before they were probably in different, probably in equities, probably in something else. But when the 08 crash, a lot of money started flowing into housing market.
Right.
I don't know why, but when you follow the money, suddenly at one point in time, even recently, I think they own about 5% of all real estate in the United States. So you follow the money, you follow them just buying and buying and buying. If you take a look at BlackRock's portfolio, they have a ton of homes.
Yeah.
Shit ton of homes,
Right.
which they are pretty much vacant because
Right.
they're, the portfolio holders, they have like 5-year, 10-year portfolios that they have to hold before they sell. And then they made a lot of money when they resold it because from 08 to whatever, 014, they double, triple their money.
So they don't care if they make a positive cash flow on those properties that they buy. They're just holding it because they're expecting capital appreciation.
Yeah.
And especially they're going to flip it at some point, and that's how they're going to.
Well, I mean, they're gonna rent it out if they can.
Right.
There's some restrictions on that more recently, but back then, they were one of the people that were bailing out the banks by buying up their portfolio of homes, right? So just like myself, I'm a much smaller player, but we all did the same thing. We bought homes that were being unloaded by banks at cents on the dollar. So, I mean, they bought a lot of homes.
I remember there was I wasn't in the U.S. necessarily, but I just heard, and I heard from here, it seemed like, so there was all this foreclosure that happened, right, through the '08 crash, and banks were holding on to these a ton of foreclosure, and then it seemed like almost overnight those foreclosures were kind of gone. Like all of a sudden, it seemed like it was just either the bank said, okay, we're pulling it back.
Yeah.
And I know at that time that there was a ton of Chinese buyers. And so in China, it was like, and I know this because I was in space here and I was talking to a lot of people here. China, Chinese buyers couldn't legally move their money out of China, but they found sources of ways through bank intermediaries that they were actually able to move that money into the U.S.
I think they needed to move their money out. I don't necessarily think they were buying distressed property, but they wanted to buy anything outside of China, right? Because they need to diversify. I mean, in China, yes, you're a billionaire in China, but if you can't move that money, they can easily take it away at any point in time.
Right.
So just like myself, I like to diversify. I like to have assets all over the world, just for whatever reason, just in case.
Right.
I mean, you don't want all your eggs in one basket, for example. I mean, for any reason whatsoever, whether it's a lawsuit or, government takeover or whatever, your assets can just disappear like this. So It's good to be, just like you have assets all over the world. It's good to just be prepared and have a diversified set of assets, whether it's in real estate or anything else.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can understand why the Chinese wanted to buy in the U.S. because it's free world. It's a free economy, unlike in China. But also they had money to unload. Right. So whatever it takes, I'm sure they invested in Australia. I know they invested in the Philippines at some point, but most of the money went to the United States.
Right. So all these houses that were sitting on the foreclosure market and they dried up, how fast did the inventory go?
So I followed the market really closely. When I was buying from '08 on, I remember because I was in auction blocks. I was sitting there and they were going through lists of properties, right, through auction. Okay, we're going to sell 100 North Atlantic Avenue in Long Beach for $100,000. And then they would call it out every 15 seconds and they would have 300 a day. So a lot of the buyers like myself, you only had about 15 minutes to make a decision.
Wow.
And so
sight unseen.
Well, the thing is, it's a little more complicated than that. You have to do research on properties that you know about because you're not going to buy something in Long Beach if it's like 2 hours away, during traffic. Yeah. So a lot of the big boys and even myself, I had runners, I had people driving to properties just to make sure it's still there because I bought a property that was burned to the ground by being stupid, for example. So you have to know that the property is still there. You have to know also if it's occupied because if you buy an occupied property, that means you have to at some point, evict or negotiate with the owners to get out.
Right.
And that delays, your ability to flip it,
Yeah.
for example, right?
Yeah.
Or to even make money out of it. So that's another, you don't want to be putting yourself in a position where your money is locked up.
Right.
And if it's occupied, then it's locked up. So, but at that time, I remember there was hundreds and hundreds of properties, so much so that I actually expanded outside of LA. I went buying in Florida, I bought in Montana. And at one point, when I was buying portfolios by a Countrywide Bank, I don't know if you remember Countrywide Bank.
They're
right?
huge.
Huge company. They failed. They sold out to Bank of America, and then actually the government made them sell out to Bank of America. And Bank of America all of a sudden had to unload most of their assets because they can't hold it, or else they'll have a liquidity crisis.
Right.
So they sold hundreds of thousands of homes, like
Jesus.
in bulk. So they would say, okay, here's a portfolio of 20 homes. One's in Montana, one's in Florida, one is in California, one is in Alaska. Do you want it? You make us a bid, or here's the amount. And you say, okay, do your analysis. I would say about 95% of those homes are going to be successful, and maybe 5% would be just junk. And so you do your analysis, and then you buy the portfolio, or you just pass on it.
So in one particular tranche, how many homes? 20 homes, literally at one shot?
Yeah, well, as conduits, I mean, there's so many different levels on how they do it. They just had to unload so many properties. At some point, they were auctioning it off through different conduits. Sometimes they were just selling it as portfolios. Sometimes they would just go through foreclosure process and then let the public bid on it. So they want all. It's almost like you want to turn on the faucet. You want to just let it all out, and just who takes all of these assets.
It's just total fire sale.
Fire sale on all angles.
So was it really like 10 cents on the dollar?
Surprisingly, even less in some areas. And I learned a lot of things. Like, for example, I bought this property in Illinois for something like $10,000, right? It was just
How much was it worth?
It was worth about $100,000,
Okay.
but I realized that I couldn't sell it because there's no buyers on it. So it's like, okay, it's worth $100,000 based on comparables. But then you look at days on market, it's 375 days on the market. So
Why couldn't this particular property sell?
It could have. I sold it right away because I sold it really cheap.
Okay.
But in reality, you only have so many buyers in that part of Illinois. Like,
I see.
who else wants to buy a farmland in the middle of nowhere that is vacant, for example?
Right.
You don't know.
Right.
So I would have stuff like that, but I would ultimately sell my whole portfolio of homes. But some took longer than others. Some of them were, not the best investments. Maybe I'll take a little bit of a loss on it. But overall, again, 95% of the portfolio is good. I would make double my money or something.
So if you bought the portfolio, say like 10 cents on the dollar, how much would you, on average, sell that for? Would it be like 20 cents on the dollar?
50 cents on a dollar.
Jesus. So you would make like 4 times the
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But again, you have to, but again, you take a loss of maybe 100% on 5% of this. So ultimately, you'd be making about double your money in 6 months, like something like
Jesus
that.
Christ.
Yeah, it was a good time. Just like mortgage companies made out big on subprime, investors made out big during the '08 crash and forward, right?
So all this volatility, there's just tremendous opportunity and this great volatility. And I was always like, so, I started buying I bought my first property in 2016, but I knew about 2012 and just like, just missed it. And I wish I was more aggressive when I was younger. I wish I was more confident when I was younger, but I wasn't. And so I was kind of playing it safe, trying to learn and this and that, and always kind of like held my breath for the next opportunity. I'm just buying. I've been buying at a good time. I bought it at a good time, but my properties have gone up, and a lot of properties have more than doubled in value, and I'm happy about that. But it wasn't the insane amount of growth that you guys saw. Like there's one aspect of investing in real estate. Like you invest in real estate, oftentimes nowadays you invest in real estate as a way of either beating inflation or saving money on taxes, but to generate that type of wealth like that you guys did, like making fuck you money basically. Those opportunities aren't very easy to find because real estate is such an efficient market.
Yeah, and plus I was in a very, I would say, I don't want to say elusive, but it's a different category of real estate investment, right? No one's going to go to an auction with $1 million in cashier's checks and say, here.
Right. Right.
So, and do the research and make sure that it's a first trust deed or you know what you're buying, whether how the house is still standing. With so many research that needs to go on before you actually put your money down. So yeah, I mean, I was in a very I would say, niche part of the market. And not a lot of people, I mean, you wouldn't know about it unless you've been in real estate for a while, whether you researched it.
Right.
But there's a lot of opportunities for everybody, right? A lot of people made money. And it's just one of those things where an opportunity exists and you happen to be at the right place at the right time. And, you know, you jump in all in.
How did you raise the capital that you needed to buy so many properties?
So in the beginning, I used my own capital because when I jumped in around '08, everyone was afraid. Everyone was afraid of real estate. But when you have a proof of concept where you buy like 3 properties, and I bought it locally, I bought it in LA. I bought 3 properties, and each one of the properties I made 30% of my money in about 2 months.
Yeah.
So showing that kind of proof of concept, people take note of it. They say, okay, let's try it out for a couple of deals.
Right.
Within a year, I was already getting millions in investments, and then because the concept was there, it made sense.
Right.
Okay, there's distressed property, but there's also a large buyer pool that wants to buy these properties. Yes, I'm buying distressed, but when you resell it, you sell it to normal people that want to live in that community.
Yeah, and you're still selling at a discount, still making money, or just market
Not
price?
as much as it used to, but yeah, when I sell it. It's funny. Sometimes I sell it to the previous owners. Sometimes I sell it to like the tenants, right? Because even though property values were all skewed, they still needed a place to stay.
Yeah.
So they would buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. What was the, how big did the fund that you got, how big did your fund get in terms of your ability to just outright buy properties in cash?
It fluctuates, but let's just say it's about $20 million.
Right. And you're constantly turning that over.
Yeah. Yeah, constantly turning it over. And at some point, I had to reduce it because you couldn't buy enough properties at some point. When the banks decided, okay, I don't want to sell any more distressed assets, then you're holding $20 million in a bag and it's not doing anything.
Right.
You got to just cut it down and start changing your model.
Right. Wow. And this happened over, it sounded like it dried up pretty quick.
No, I think, like you said, I should have gotten balls out, right?
Yeah.
A lot faster. I could have done that, but I had to test the waters a little bit. And then it took me about a year or so to finally get the funding that I want to buy as much as I want, right? And to show them that these investments are solid, right? And yes, we'll lose 5%, but you'll make more than enough to compensate for that.
Right.
And then you have I think I had a 3-4 year good run where I was buying like hundreds and hundreds of properties. And then suddenly they kind of stopped selling distressed assets at some point because the banks suddenly figured out the liquidity issues, and then they didn't need to sell their distressed assets at a discount anymore.
Right. You and I are both from the LA area. I grew up there.
Yep.
You grew up there. I'm looking at what's happening. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, you have homes there. Like, what happened to your home? Like, you live in that area.
Yeah.
Where is your home?
So my home was in Pasadena, and I left. Well, I happened to be in Japan, so during the fires, but my son stayed home. He went back home at the time of the fires, and I guess he was trying to call me while I was on a plane, and he wasn't able to contact me and my family. And it wasn't until later on, about an hour later, that we received his calls, and he was still there saying, there's like a fire in our backyard, and there's 100-mile-an-hour winds. And I just told him, take the dog and go. But luckily, And unluckily, my neighborhood basically went up in flames, but a small row of houses, including mine, survived that, fire onslaught. And it's just, I don't want to call it, I don't know if it's miraculous or is meant to be or anything, but we got lucky. It's just one of those things. I could have lost everything, or I could have, but in this case, we did all right. We survived it.
You showed me the map, and literally, your neighbors across the street are gone.
They're gone. It's crazy. I mean, I don't know what saved our row of homes, but I feel bad for our neighbors because they own big mansions, $5 million homes all across the neighborhood. Same with Palisades. They lost 5,000 homes in Palisades, more than 5,000, almost 6,000 homes. And each one of those homes I know is about $5 million. So it is, imagine 5,000, $5 million homes just go away, just disappear. It's
What's going to happen? Because there's, forget the, there's so much I want to dive into this. Like what's going to, holy cow, all the insurance problems that they're going to have. I bought a house in Oahu, a 7-unit property in Oahu. I bought it late recently, and so the interest was pretty high. I bought it when my mortgage interest and taxes every month was approximately $15,000. But I was still able to pencil that in under long term, and then the Maui fire happened. So I went from $15,000. Now with the increase of taxes and insurance, it's now up to 18,000 something. Yeah. And now I'm in the red.
Yeah.
So, holy cow, this doesn't just impact the people who had their houses burned. This is going to impact everyone in that state, and maybe in other states too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's time for you to sell that, by the way. Just kind of unload that asset and just try something different. Talking about insurance, I mean, that's a whole new category of what unknowns. And right now, I feel bad for a lot of people because insurance carriers cut them off about 4 months ago, right? They decided not to renew the insurance of thousands of homes, which ended up burning to the ground.
Right.
So they kind of know what's going on. They know climate change. They know the wind patterns and
wasn't
LA.
that because of the California policies that prevented insurance companies from raising their insurance premiums?
It's a accumulation of so many things. I think the fact that there's more natural disasters in the U.S., from hurricanes to windstorms to firestorms, they're having a lot more losses, and you add that to the cost of rebuilding, the cost of materials, the cost of labor are all going up. So for them, analyzing your losses versus your gains, the only way you can do is by increasing premiums.
Right.
Now, I hate premium increases, but how else are they going to make money? I mean, I understand their situation and I understand other people's situation. There's really no easy way out of it. But as a business, it made sense for them to get out of California. And that's why a lot of them are just leaving.
I remember in Lake Tahoe, every year around the forest regions, there's forest fires around the summer and fall time around August, September. And, I was getting kind of worried at one point too. I had 6 units in Tahoe, and I called the insurance company. I said, you know what? I looked at it. I looked at the recovery cost. And we had just gone through COVID and all of this super inflation around material costs and things like that. The prices weren't coming down.
Yep.
My replacement cost from my insurance wouldn't even have covered building a new house.
Yep.
So I called the insurance company. I asked them to increase the coverage. My insurance coverage went from less than $5,000 a year to $12,000 a year.
Well, yeah. Well, you did a smart thing, by the way, increasing your coverage, because a lot of the people in the fires, they did not. So their insurance costs remained the same, but their cost for coverage to rebuild won't even cover the homes that they're trying to build now.
Right.
I mean, with the labor again, with the labor and the cost of supplies to build a new home, like almost doubling, and their insurance premium, their insurance coverage is the same as it was, 5-10 years ago. Just take the money and they're gonna go.
Well, you know what happened with Maui, right? Like,
Yeah.
all these guys that, obviously they got their houses burned down, and they were like, Maui was a different story because there was a lot of people talking about, oh, there's opportunities to buy in Maui now, like, because all these people are going to sell. But then I think Maui's there's a lot of localism. So
Yeah.
I kind of stayed away from that because I didn't want problems with the local.
Yeah.
And I think they put a moratorium or something, or they prevent it for a short time. They prevented people from selling their property. But these guys, first, even if they did get their insurance claim and it took some time, it was going to take years for them to rebuild.
Oh yeah.
And the cost was going to be through the roof because you're going to get supplies and contractors to an island in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Imagine the increase in cost with all the people who needs to rebuild the home.
Yeah.
And the same is going to be said about LA. Like, there's no way they're going to be able to replace their home with the replacement cost of their building at anything decent, right?
So I was looking again. We're both from LA. We're looking at the news 2-3 times a day because I'm curious to see what's going on there. And every day there's something new going on. But talking about fires, I'm trying to see what's going to happen going forward. And so one of the cases that I'm looking at is the Paradise Fire. It's called the Dew Fire, where back then it was one of the worst California fire disasters in history. They lost, I don't know, got so many homes as well and so many deaths, but they're only 20% rebuilt. That means that there's a bunch
Still
this is 5 years ago, up to today, they're only 20% rebuilt. Wow. And I'm thinking, I can't imagine in LA where you're only 20% rebuilt after 5 years. I mean, we're talking about some of the prime real estate in LA. We're talking about Malibu, Palisades, Pasadena, right? Those are very prime neighborhoods, right. Millions of dollars of homes. So I'm thinking there's going to be a totally different scenario where the government is going to be pouring billions of dollars to make it different, to make sure that it's rebuilt. Remember, we got the World Cup in a year or so.
Yeah.
We got the Olympics in 2028.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be, I don't want to say, you don't want to be the city which has all these burnt down homes and vacant land. You don't want to show that face to the world. Right. You want to show them that, we're going to rebuild, we're going to do this fast, and we're going to prosper.
Right.
By then. I think they're going to put a lot of energy. In fact, one of the things that the governor is doing, Governor Newsom, is he eliminated some of the building and safety regulations to rebuild.
Right.
And really basically cut off 2 large organizations that can hamper your rebuilding process. One of them is CEQA, and the other one is the Coastal Commission. Mm-hmm. Without those 2, you can fast track a lot of the building.
Right.
So I'm hoping that added with a lot of the energy that's going into LA right now. I think they're going to pour in billions and billions of dollars to rebuild LA on top of the insurance money that's already going in. I have hope that they're going to rebuild much faster than in other areas because it is a disaster situation and you don't want LA looking like a shit show.
Right. It's so fun. I can't help it but think, like, how did all these things just align perfectly? Yeah. Like, insurance, obviously, you had all the issues with how forest fires are mismanaged, right? And so everyone's highlighting how there wasn't water in the reservoir, because of the environmentalist.
Yeah.
And everything to the insurance companies kind of seeing, okay, this is too much risk and pulling out. And then the new presidential inauguration happening, and then apparently they saw someone on camera. They caught someone with a blowtorch going around, and happens to be an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
What do you think happened?
You know, I have a strong feeling that at least some of the fires were caused by arson because it doesn't look. I can't imagine 4 or 5 fires happening simultaneously as being natural, right? So
And they weren't even, they were far apart.
they're far, I mean, LA is big. You know how
Yeah,
LA
yeah.
it can take you 2 to 3 hours to drive across LA. It's a huge county.
Right.
So and
Even
these
the
fires
fire-
are far away.
And even these the fire department, they didn't even know there wouldn't be water in the hydrants.
Yeah. Well, even if there were water in the hydrants, I don't think they had the capacity to suddenly
Right.
fight this windstorm. These were 100-mile-an-hour winds, and
Right.
I mean, I live in LA, I live in Pasadena, I live in the hill,
Yeah.
right? So I felt the 100 mile per hour winds coming
Right.
down the hill, and if you imagine you put a blowtorch there and just set a tree on fire, you're gonna burn the whole neighborhood down.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But this was I would say, I hate to say it, it's a perfect storm, but this is what happened. It was a perfect storm where either somebody knew that the Santa Ana winds were going to be really strong this time, and then they just, who knows? If it was arson, then they picked the perfect time to have it.
Right.
And
I can't help but think
I don't
that
know.
this happens right before Trump takes over.
Yeah, it could
And
be
this,
anything.
and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is a very deep blue
Yeah.
city. Right?
Deep Blue City, and you already now there's going to be some infighting. There's some Congress people that don't want to fund LA,
Yes.
for example.
Yeah.
I think this is Ohio congressman. So you're going to have a lot of fighting. You have a lot of showboating. Me, I'm hoping for the best of LA. I'm hoping that we recover, and I can't wait to get back because I have a lot of things to do. And I mean, I haven't been to my house. They have national guards guarding whole neighborhoods, so you can't even go
Right.
in. There's no electricity in my house. There's no water.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, my house is still there, but I don't even know what it looks like. It
Yeah.
could probably be half burnt. Who knows? Right? So
So
see.
even though you're Filipino, you kind of have your business there, and you have I think you have about 300 real estate agents, correct? And then you have a bunch of ancillary real estate services.
So when you have that many agents, it fluctuates a lot. I think the last count was about 180, but it'll go up, it'll go down depending on, what's going on. So yeah, I do have a lot of agents in Coldwell Banker. My office. I have one in downtown. I have one in Northridge. Northridge, there was a fire nearby as well. I think it started in Sunland. I have one in Chino Hills, and yeah, we do have a lot of agents, and my agents right now are trying to help out the community.
Are they getting
because-
flooded with calls right now?
Yeah. I mean, imagine not 10,000, over 12,000 homes disappeared.
Yeah.
Where are all those people going to go?
Right.
They need housing.
Right.
And we're in the housing business.
Right.
So already my age, we're in a WhatsApp chat group, right? And they're like, oh, I have this family that needs a 4-bedroom house in this area. So they're using the agents as a resource to try to find someplace to move. And so we're there in the front lines trying to help them out.
So they're looking for the first thing they need housing, and obviously, I bet you there's probably a very limited supply now.
Oh, you're not gonna repopulate 12,000 people. You're just not. Some of them left the area altogether. Some of them don't have insurance, so they can't afford living in LA anymore. Who knows? Some of them are just they're dumbfounded. They don't know what the hell to do. They're living in shelters.
Right.
I know there's 3 or 4 shelters out there full of people, but you need to repopulate
Right.
those people. You need to find places for them. So yeah, in the next few months, there's going to be a huge amount of people that need housing.
I was just
huge amount of people.
I was just watching the news, and they're saying that a lot of people who had their houses up for sale pulled it off the market because they know they can rent it for a lot more. What are
Right.
people going to have to pay now?
Whether you're renting it out, whether you're selling it, I think the demand for housing is just going to go climb up.
Okay.
Especially in these areas where they're high net worth individuals. They can afford to buy a new house. They can afford to move. They can afford to rent out, $20,000, $30,000 a month for a house. So yeah, we're gonna have some people. I don't want to say take advantage of it because it's still supply and demand, right?
Right.
If somebody wants to pay $20,000 to rent your house, and then there's a group of people that want to rent it out. Of course, you're going to rent it out.
Right.
Right. Some people say, "Oh, that's a gouging." It's possible, but what are the options?
Right.
You
Exactly.
can't if you don't want to rent it out, then don't rent it out. If you're going to rent it out, and there's a demand for it, then you rent it out at the demand. Same with selling your house.
Right. It's the owner's right to rent it out for as much as they want because,
Mm-hmm.
when when COVID happened and
Mm-hmm.
like they couldn't. Well, I don't know. Some people didn't have to pay their mortgages, but I paid my mortgage, even if I had no tenants. Like,
Yeah.
So, so like I think people have the right to rent it for whatever they can get.
Yeah, I mean, the insurance companies gave some of these people or families hundreds of thousands of dollars just for relocation
Wow.
costs. Yeah, in fact, one of the person that reached out to me, one of my agents said they had 24 months rent in advance. I will pay somebody 24 months of rents at this price if you can find me a 2-bedroom house in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
So is that where the opportunity lies for your agency is like rentals and helping relocate these people?
Well, again, that is one angle that I'm going to be going after because there is a shortage of rental housing.
Right.
There's a shortage of housing all
Right.
over LA right now. But if I can reach out to families that are able to rent their house out for a premium, then that's an angle that I'm going to share with my agents. Hey, why don't you reach out to good neighborhoods and maybe they'll rent it out for double the price that they would normally rent it out for.
All right.
Right. So yeah, that's one angle to get volume going. It also helps out. It helps out the people that need housing.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, you're killing two birds with one stone. You want to help out the families, but at the same time, the people that are or the homeowners that can rent out their places, they'll be making a premium in rents.
Did any of these guys who had their houses burned down, are they looking to sell?
So when your house burned down, I think, and you have insurance, for example, you're given a choice. And again, we were talking earlier, if they didn't increase their value, what do you call it, their replacement value, then the amount that they get may not be sufficient to rebuild. And plus, some people don't want to wait 2 years to rebuild.
Right.
So they may just take the money and buy another house
Right.
somewhere else. I mean, they're not going to uproot their families and suddenly go somewhere else. So they're probably going to stay in LA somewhere and maybe move down from.
So they take the replacement cost of the building because it only covers the building, doesn't
does.
cover the land, right?
Correct.
So they take the replacement cost of the building and then they go and buy the another, maybe a smaller house somewhere further, pay for the whole thing
Yeah.
outright. Then you have the land,
Yeah.
and then they're going to sell the land.
Yeah, they can sell the land. That's one opportunity that you will see. I mean, who wants to own land, especially land that is in a disaster zone?
Right. And difficult to develop.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hate to say this, but that is one opportunity that people look at. A lot of investors make a lot of money in crisis, in times of crisis. You know, whether it's a disaster, whether it's COVID, whether it's a firestorm, whether it's a world war. When things shift around, there's money to be made. You know, like Schindler's List. I mean, the first 5 minutes of Schindler's List, it's about a guy taking advantage of the war, right?
Right.
I feel bad for it, but people also provide a service.
Right.
And you need to do that because if not, then you have 10,000 people that
Right.
have no place to stay.
Right.
So the market shift, and in this case, a lot of money is going to go into LA. Insurance money, government money, and literally, I would not be surprised if there's $1 trillion going into LA just to rebuild it.
Right.
So looking at opportunities as an investor, you could look at buying land, you could look at rebuilding, you can look, I mean, there's
Do you
a
think-
shortage of contractors.
Right. Oh yeah. And
For
just
so many
even
things.
having a business where you're building and constructing, like that would be massive right now. If
Huge.
you were, or
Huge.
even if you're from another state, I'd be looking
Yep.
to go into LA. Like,
Well, you need a license to
Yeah.
conduct,
right.
be a
right,
contractor in
right,
LA. They don't have enough.
Right.
They don't have
Of
enough
course.
supplies. They don't have enough material. They don't have enough builders. They don't have enough contractors. So those are going to be in demand, and I can already see that they're going to be making, a shit ton of money just building homes.
I think the governor should just allow people from with licenses in other states to come and operate. No,
Well,
I mean,
they have to do a lot of things. I mean, he's looking at it from different angles, and I'm trying to anticipate his next move. But so far, getting rid of CEQA and getting rid of the Coastal Commission eliminates a lot of the barriers for permitting. And
Right.
so that helps out a lot of people. Say, hey, okay, you can build and you can build faster. That's really important.
right.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's just
so
always
important.
been the biggest problem in California, right? And
Yeah.
and it's also what's driving up home prices because it creates a shortage of
Yeah.
supply, shortage of housing, and then all it does is just keep making homes more unaffordable.
Yeah. So I can't even, I'm trying to understand the ramifications of how LA is going to turn out in the next few months. But I could already tell by, again, the Maui fires, the Paradise County fire or city fire, unless they put a lot of energy, which I think they will, you're going to have vacant land, and you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want, and I mean, these 10,000, 12,000 homes, you don't want a vacant land everywhere. It's not a forest, it's a freaking community.
Do you think it'll be in a similar situation like after the '08 crash where you can buy, say, land at for pennies on the dollar?
It's possible. I have to look at it. Again, I'm in foreclosure. So a lot of the property that don't have insurance may have a mortgage on it. And banks don't want a $2 million piece of vacant land. So they're gonna unload it at whatever price they can. So yeah, there's gonna be an opportunity to buy cheap land there. But what are you gonna do with the cheap land? You're gonna have to wait to build it, right? But there's different opportunities there. That's one angle of it. Like, okay, if I can buy a piece of land in Palisades overlooking the beach or overlooking the ocean at $500,000, I'd jump on that all day long. I mean, just land banking. Like in the Philippines, you buy something, you land bank, you own a beautiful piece of land. And at some point, that's going to be from $500,000 to about a $3 million piece of land.
So you would do that. You would actually, if you had the chance, you would buy, because I mean, you're either taking it off the bank's balance sheet or you're taking it off of somebody who wants to get out.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think you're necessarily, you're not doing, maybe, in a way it's some sort of service because
Yeah.
banks aren't going to hold on to it. And
They're not.
Right. And people have a right to choose to get out. And just like in Maui, they, a lot of people are choosing to sell. I mean, they're not going to wait 3 years and they just shouldn't have to.
Yeah. As an investment, that could be one angle, but there's so many opportunities there right now. I mean, I hate to say it, but again, as an investor, when I'm thinking, there's so many ways to invest and help people out at the same time over there. Again, you're trying to relocate thousands of families that need homes. So if I can provide them homes, then that'd be a faster way of doing it.
Right.
But in the end, you do want to do something with all these vacant land. And if there's an opportunity to do something with it, whether you buy it or whether you build it or whatever, there's money to be made.
Let's say you buy it for like, say, 20, 25 cents on the dollar. Does that sound reasonable? Or
It
maybe
is.
50 cents on a dollar?
For land, it is, but at the same time, you can't do anything with land, or you can't
Right.
rent land.
So you buy it for 20, 25 cents on a dollar, and you got to hold on to it for, say, 3 years, 5 years?
I think shorter, I'll be honest with you, because I think they're going to make the rebuilding process much easier. So to me, even though I'm getting the land at a cheaper value, I know I could build it much faster than they would normally allow me to build it.
Right.
So I could build like a mansion there in maybe 9 months without CEQA and without the Coastal Commission. And that's big. There's a lot of developers that have been fighting them like literally for years. But now that you could do that, I think there's value there. You could probably build it about $300 a square foot. So a 5,000 square foot house, about 1.5 million. You buy the house for 2 million. Imagine Palisades, the average homes there used to go for about $5 million.
Right.
So you at least doubled your money if you're going to be doing something like that.
So you buy the home, and then you buy the land, and then you build the home. You're in it for $2 million,
Yep.
give or take. And then you can potentially, the value's got to drop in the future. You
It's
don't
not
think
gonna,
so?
no, because again, these are wealthy people that lost their home. So you have money there that are going to be buying something else.
Right.
So maybe not that area, but they're going to be buying in Brentwood, they're going to be buying in Beverly Hills, you have like the movie industry in that Palisades,
Right.
right? This is a very wealthy community, even
Right.
in Pasadena. So I really don't think that the market is gonna get lower, because then now you have a demand on houses from very wealthy people. So they need to buy something, or they need to live somewhere,
Right.
and they're not gonna move to New Mexico,
Right.
so they're gonna be
Right.
local.
So from $2 million investment, flip it for 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You make a good 100% profit in a span of what, 2 years, maybe 1
Yeah,
year, 2
yeah.
years. That sounds like a pretty good business.
It is, but so again, it's capital intensive,
Yeah.
right? And right now I'm just looking at the regulations to see what opportunities there are, but there's gonna be a lot.
Okay.
I think LA investors know this, and they know the money that's coming into LA. So there's gonna be opportunities. I don't know if I'm gonna be necessarily land banking or building, but definitely it's gonna be something in real estate and housing.
Right. And do you think, are you going to be raising money for something like this if you do it?
I am. I'm gonna right now. It's every day I listen to the news. There's a new rule going on. Like, one of the good things, I'm not even sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, is they put a moratorium on canceling insurance for the next 12 months. Okay.
Can they really stop the insurance company from doing that? I mean, somebody's got to fund the insurance company because they got to cover the losses.
Well, it's not. Well, they already took a loss, but they're saying that you cannot drop policies right now. So let's say that I own a property, and I do own a property in Pasadena. They can easily say, okay, we're not going to insure you anymore, and they may do that 12 months from now. But at least between now and 12 months from now, they can't do anything.
So you're going to keep your property in Pasadena, or you're going to sell it?
I don't know. I'll look at it. If there's an opportunity there, I'll sell it. I'll rent it. I'm much more global now anyway, so I can do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll see what the opportunity is.
So could I invest in something like that?
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to you. We'll look at opportunities there. There's going to be a lot. There's going to be people that want to sell. There's going to be people that want to buy. There's going to be distressed assets. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of land.
Right.
And it's just whether there's leverage there for you to do something that you can make more money out of, right?
Yeah.
You can get a loan, if you can get an investor or investment, and you have a good concept, then there's ways to make money. There's always going to be ways to make money anywhere, but in this particular case, LA is the center of attention, and we're from LA, so.
And a lot of Filipinos here are familiar with LA. In fact, LA has the largest Filipino community in the world.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, whether they live in Palisades, I don't know, or something else, but they do that.
I know they're in a lot. They're in Cerritos and West Covina and Glendale, and so I grew up with a lot of Filipinos.
Yeah, I know. Well, now you're in the Philippines.
Now I'm here. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that would be a very I hate the idea of investing in people's distress, but if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And these are the type of opportunities that I've been waiting for years for, just like the '08 crash.
Yep.
And I think these are, Maui was kind of, I wasn't there enough. And then, there's a lot of locals. And so didn't know what you were getting into. LA is a big market.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's massive.
Second largest city in the country.
Yeah.
LA is enormous.
Right.
And there's an opportunity there. Again, on a daily basis, I'm just trying to see where the needs are. And as investors, people think that, you can make money. It's okay to make money and help people out at the same time, which is exactly what I always do. I mean, I'm in real estate, and there's a need for housing.
Right.
And you might have to pay more for housing now, but the need is there, and the insurance company is dishing out hundreds of thousands of dollars for temporary housing. Then you have to help them out.
And nowadays in the U.S., recently in the U.S., there's very little investment deals you can buy where you can actually pencil in and make a positive cash flow. And if you did, you're talking about very small percentage points, like 2-3%, whatever. I mean, it would have taken you years to make your money back. But in this particular case, you're making back your money in a year. This is if you do it right and you do it at scale, you can really make some fuck you money.
Yeah, you can. And especially even if you buy like one house, for example. I mean, like you're talking about the Palisades. Yes, you can do that with a piece of land. You can buy it probably fairly cheap.
Yeah.
You can build it fairly quickly now, and you can sell it for a lot more money. Now, on the other end, yes, can you sell for $5 million? I think you can, because people are going to be wanting to buy it right beside the beach, right? Is there going to be fires there at some point? Who knows?
Yeah.
Palisades was there before anything.
Right.
Malibu was there with, it's been there forever.
Right.
So it's going to rebuild. Are they going to be more careful with fires? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
They already learned their lesson. They're probably gonna have 2 or 3 reservoirs now going forward.
Yeah.
So
and
they
it's
learned their
almost like
lesson.
they had to go through so much pain to make some serious changes
Yep.
with their policy and their leadership in their government. And
Exactly.
other people are saying that California is going to become a red state now.
It's possible. We take advantage. We do what we can. We shift with the policies, whether you're red or blue. You take advantage, and you
Yeah.
take advantage of whatever policies that's there for
Yeah.
that particular term. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right now, it's a lot of clashing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of finger pointing.
Right.
But I think overall, there's going to be a good opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, here, even in the Philippines, like, people are finding it more and more difficult to find good real estate investments where you're penciling in. In fact, a lot of people are, concerned about a crash or concerned about a correction here, at least. I think it's a very resilient market still, but a lot of people are like either looking for an exit or, looking for opportunities, And I've been like kind of, promoting Japan because I saw that it was an interesting market where you can buy properties for cheap and still cash flow pretty good positively. Do you think Filipinos have an opportunity to invest in something like this in LA and in the US?
Yeah, I mean, just like China, there's a lot of wealthy Filipinos that want to move their money around. They don't always want to have all their eggs in the Philippines, right? They want to like diversify. In fact, that there's Filipinos that invest in Japan. I mean, I know some, some.
Right.
And there's a lot of Filipinos that invest in the U.S. And if they're wealthy, that they have residency
Right.
in the U.S. as well. And that's good, because if you have residency in the U.S., it's much easier to invest there. But if you don't, there's still ways to do it. Because of the tax laws there, they need you to make sure that you're compliant
Right.
in paying the taxes there. I think U.S. allows certain countries to be able to buy in the U.S.
You mean there's a restriction on some countries?
Yeah.
Like what countries can?
I don't know. I was reading about that a little bit. They're saying that some countries cannot buy in the U.S., but overall, I think most democratic countries should be okay to buy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Philippines shouldn't be a problem.
I know a lot of Filipinos here who are very wealthy who own property in San Francisco or LA.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I would, I would bet that some of the most elite families and wealthier Filipinos here definitely have a vested interest in.
I know everyone that I know that are, let's just say, in the upper class, own property in the U.S. and mainly in California.
In California, yeah.
Mainly.
Yeah.
I mean, just the who's who of Filipinos, they own property in the U.S.
Right. Absolutely.
And a lot of them are just vacant, or family members live there.
Right.
They own 2 or 3 properties.
Right. And it makes sense because, like, I mean, the U.S. dollar is going to continue being stronger and stronger, and countries like the yen, Japan, and the yen, and the Philippines and the pesos. I mean, those are going to be devalued relative to the dollars. Yeah. I think that's people realizing that now and looking at other assets outside.
You hit the nail on the head. The new incoming president, Trump, is going to be isolationist. And that basically means that the dollar is going to be stronger.
Why is it that if he's an isolationist that makes the dollar stronger?
Well, then one of the things is it's going to put tariffs, for example, on a lot of the goods. So that means that the import-export model is going to be different, and that
less imports.
Less imports, and then and then inflation is going to go up, right? And inflation going up means that the dollar value has to go up
because interest rates go up.
Yeah, interest rates go up. Right. So it just pushes a lot of energy into the dollar.
Right.
I think that's going to happen. I think it's already happening. I mean, he's not a president yet, but you can already see against the yen, it's at 150. I mean, I invest in Tokyo. It's already like 158 the last couple of days. Right. And that's going to need to change at some point. But the dollar is going to get stronger, next year or maybe the year afterwards.
Right. So you and I started talking about, investing in Japan. I've met you a long time ago, and that's just when I was running ZMatch. And we've had several talks about stuff here. But then you recently joined me on investing in Japan.
Yep.
Tell me why you decided to buy properties in Japan.
First of all, I like Tokyo. I love Japan. I love the food there. I love the safety there. I love the organization there. And I'm also a world investor. But Japan in itself, I think there's a lot of energy in Japan. It's like the top destination for tourism. And the fact that it's so cheap right now, kills two birds. One bird is the fact that there's tourism from all over the world coming in. So if you're going to buy and hold, it's easy to rent things out.
Right. Second
Second reason is that the yen is so weak that the cost of the properties are much lower with respect to our own currency, whether it's the peso or the dollar. Right. So I'm buying it at, I'm used to seeing about 100 yen to the dollar. Now it's about 160 yen to the dollar. So I'm buying it almost at 30% market value, off market value.
Right.
And then with the tourism coming in, that means that I'm getting more tourists. I'm getting more investment cash flow. So it makes absolute sense.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, a lot of my friends in the U.S., they want to diversify also. And Japan is the place.
Right.
They love coming here, and then they love coming to Japan, and they want to put some money there.
Right.
It's a lot of energy is there in Japan right now.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's kind of like what we're working towards is welcoming and helping other investors come in and buy in properties and lucrative markets. I think it's like when you know real estate and you like to buy real estate and you invest a portion of your portfolio in real estate, your market's not always going to be the opportune time, but you need to move your money somewhere. You need to invest in something, and so. I think the trend of looking at other real estate markets, I think Filipinos are very aware of that.
Yeah.
Because back in the days, if you made any type of money, you weren't keeping it here because you don't really necessarily trust the government or the politics or the market. So you'd move it to the U.S. Yeah. But then many Americans haven't really opened their eyes to investing overseas. That's not very common.
Yeah. Well, every year it changes, right? I think Americans are getting more and more worldly, just like everybody else. Yeah. And also the Philippines, talking about the Philippines, there's a time for investment in any part of the world. Maybe about 10, 15 years ago, the Philippines was a great opportunity to invest.
Yeah.
BGC was just being, built. I remember it was like just a piece of land here. And then they were selling land so cheap, and they were selling condominiums so cheap.
Yeah.
And so I thought, wow, this is kind of a good location to invest. It's master planned. They have flood control systems here. Like I never even heard of that. And then I looked at their master plan. I said, wow, this looks a lot like Irvine.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be okay. So again, in real estate, we kind of know how it's going to play out, I think.
Yeah.
Especially being seasoned investors.
Yeah.
So at some point, I think BGC was a great investment. Whether it is right now, who knows? But I invested early on, so I'm happy with my investment. If it wasn't for the dollar being so strong, I probably would have made more money from my investment.
Yeah.
But I need to diversify too. So,
yeah. So you bought a lot of properties in real estate. You bought a lot of real estate in the Philippines. Like, what do you think about the Philippines real estate market right now? Where do you think it's going to go?
Well, there's always opportunities everywhere. I would say the good and the bad thing about the Philippine real estate market is that you cannot really own real estate here unless you're a Filipino citizen, or unless you do some, angle where you can buy property here. Like in Siargao, you marry a Filipina, or you go into some sort of, you trust the Philippine family and you give them your money. Who knows if that works out, but I do know that there's a lot of tourism in the islands.
Yeah.
I personally think that that's a better play right now.
Yeah.
I'm a dual citizen, so I can invest in the Philippines. there's still land out there that's fairly cheap.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't want to get ripped off, and then they don't have the infrastructure here
Right.
to confirm that, okay, you're not going to have a problem once you buy this land.
Right.
But if you overcome all of that, I think there's great opportunities in developing in the
Right.
Philippines. A lot of opportunities.
Right.
You still, Philippines is one of the few English-speaking populations where where Americans can go to and enjoy.
Right.
So there's a lot of my friends like to come here because
Right.
it's cheap
Right.
and they're friendly, and they love BGC because it's like Irvine, Century City, and it's safe.
Yeah.
And they love the beach communities as well. So yeah, I think there's opportunities here. It's just how you play it.
Yeah. You told me before, like, I agree with you that there's so much opportunity in land. Land is so cheap in developing lands, but it's pretty kind of a little bit like the wild, wild west still,
Yep.
right? Because like you told me an example of buying land, even if it's all checks out, you own the title, you could still get bullied out.
Oh,
of your
absolutely.
land. Can you tell us like that, how that might happen?
Oh, very, very easily. There's land grabbing people here. There is. Here's the thing. The problem is, now I want to say it's a problem because it's the way it is in the Philippines, is the court systems.
Yeah.
Court systems will favor basically the people that have power,
Right.
that have money, right? And if for some reason there is a dual claim on title on a certain land, because I know my father invested in Boracay, and then suddenly, a large corporation built a golf course right over his land, and then my father was like, "This is my land. Why are you building a golf course on it?" He said, "Well, it was sold to us by so and so," and I'm like, "But we have title." He goes, "Well, we can dispute that." And basically, the strong arm tactics. They told him, "You have two choices. We can go to court, which I'm pretty sure that whether you win or not, it's going to take you 20 to 30 years for this thing to finally finalize. Or you can take this settlement. I will give
was the settlement?
a piece, a condominium, or I'll give you a timeshare for this location. That's equally worth what your land is worth." And so they'll strong arm you. And what are you going to do? Are you going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars fighting them, or they're going to win anyway because they have control of the system, or they can like kind of game it?
Yeah.
Of course not. My father's like at that time 70 years old. He doesn't have 20 years to fight this
Yeah.
thing. So that's the kind of thing that I think is a dilemma for most people, but that's just how it is in the Philippines. In the U.S., it's totally different.
Right.
There's property rights there where you can fight the corporations. You can
Right.
you can do stuff.
And you can countersue them for that.
Countersue them, and then there's the press there.
Yeah.
Again, here's a little bit different. It is like the Wild West. I'm hoping it gets better because that is actually a barrier for investors to come in here and invest. You don't have that in Korea. You don't have that in Japan. They have strict regulations where corporations can't do that.
Yeah.
And also, they have better organization for title.
Yeah.
Here, your great grandmother might, or somebody's great grandmother could claim,
Right.
or a great granddaughter can claim this property, and then you're tied up in courts again.
Right. I asked David Lee Chu that question, if he could change one thing in the Philippines real estate, what it would be. And he's kind of an industry leader here. He said ownership rights.
Yeah,
When you change that, that fixes so many other problems along the way.
that makes sense.
So
Yeah.
fundamental with the whole real estate aspect of it.
Yeah, but again, people are used to a certain thing,
Yeah.
right? But if you change one thing, you will get a lot of outside money coming into the Philippines.
Right.
Again, one of the things I want to do is probably look at financial services like escrow, title. If you put those in the Philippines, you'll have so many more investors that would be interested there
Right.
because they're familiar with that the structure,
Right.
right? So, maybe in the future there's something to do there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, we're running out of time now, but I'd love to get you on a future podcast,
Sure.
a deep dive on any other topics, and especially what's going to happen in LA.
Yeah, well, I'm going to LA next week, so I will update you because again, regulations are changing on almost on a daily basis. But there is opportunity there, and I think it's one of those things that you have to take advantage of if you're an investor. But you're also helping people out.
And this is where I grew up in my family. I know the territory. You know, my family's there, and this is something I would easily jump on myself.
You should.
You should. And I probably will. I'm going to talk to you a lot more about this. And if anybody else is interested in, kind of exploring these type of investments, definitely contact me, leave a comment, send me an email. If you like this content, if you like what we're talking about here, please consider subscribing. If you have any other questions for me, Erwin, anything about real estate investment, anything at all, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, whether you think this is a great opportunity to invest in LA or it's something that you would completely stay away from, please leave your comment and let us know.